just to mention, EM is leaving this evening. Hanji.
Sorry. EM, thank you so much for this press conference. Okay, I want to take you back to the Prime Minister's comments in Samarkand, and if I may. The first part has been reported about, and much excitement has been around the first part, that there is not the air of war. The second part is what I'm interested in. The second part is that he said that on phone, we have had this conversation on phone, and we have discussed this very often, that diplomacy and dialogue is the way out. So what happened? What made the Prime Minister go public with this? Something that he had been talking to, as he said, to President Putin privately on telephone calls, but publicly bringing it up, saying this is not an era of war and that we need to.
You know, I'm not sure I would put it the way that you have put it. Remember, this was the first face-to-face meeting which the Prime Minister was having with President Putin after the commencement of the Ukraine conflict. They last met in December of last year. So, I mean, it was very natural when they have a face-to-face meeting that, you know, you begin the meeting, the press is there, you make the press remarks, and if you look at the video of that particular occasion, that's exactly what happened. Now, it's not as if we have not said that before, that we have been expressing our concern about the conflict, about the need, about the urgency for early cessation of hostilities, about the need for dialogue and diplomacy. So there has been a steady refrain. So I think, to my mind, it was entirely natural that if the Prime Minister of India and the President of Russia were meeting at this juncture, that these subjects would be addressed, and I think that's what the Prime Minister did.
Saurabh Shukla.
Thank you, Ambassador. Mr. Minister, you've had a good visit at the UN and now here bilaterally in Washington, D.C. You spoke about the global context, and in this context, I'm sure you had a discussion with the U.S. counterparts on China. You've served there, and I recall that Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a lot of efforts to bend the relationship with China. You did it. I was part of the delegation when you had gone to Beijing just before COVID. Where do you see the US and India's interest converging when it comes to China? How do you handle a belligerent China, I would say, in Indo-Pacific? Because certainly the relationship between India and China, China and the US is not in a great term. How do you handle China bullying its neighbors in this Indo-Pacific and in the global context?
Where Indian and US interests converge, and they do, I think is on the stability and the security, the progress, the prosperity, the development of the Indo-Pacific. Because you have seen, even in the case of Ukraine, a war fought a great distance away has the potential, has the capability of actually creating turbulence across the world in terms of implications for the daily lives of people. So you have to understand today this is a very globalized, extremely interlocked, a very interdependent world. And it is therefore, you know, we all, you know, to say that we have skin in the game is an understatement. I think we have vital stakes today in ensuring that the larger region is stable, that it is secure, that there is cooperation, that the focus is on the right things. To my view, what we have seen in recent years is an India whose interests and inclinations extend sufficiently eastwards into the Pacific, and a United States which is open enough to work flexibly and comfortably with partners, going beyond the orthodox limitations in the past of treaties and alliances and so on. So the world has changed, and frankly all of us have changed along with it, and we do today appreciate that no single country by itself can actually shoulder the responsibilities or the burdens of international peace and common good. That it requires a collective effort, it requires a cooperative effort, and India-US is one part of it. We have a bigger gathering or a coordination in terms of the Quad, but there are still bigger ones. I mean, if you look at two new initiatives, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework and the Indo-Pacific Initiative for Maritime Domain Awareness, they extend beyond them. They are open, they have multiple players out there. So to me, a globalized world, countries who are conscious today that the world is not unipolar, it's not bipolar, there have to be multiple players, they need to work together, there are common interests at stake out here. The rest of the region actually looks at many of the more capable countries to pull their weight and work together. I think that's the kind of situation. I believe in defining international affairs in positive terms. That's usually how diplomacy is done. So I would urge you to think of it as really a betterment or a strengthening of the Indo-Pacific as a shared objective between us.